Ever pondered on the significance of D-Day in the annals of history? D-Day, a term that has become synonymous with June 6, 1944, holds a pivotal place in the grand narrative of World War II. It was on this day that the tides of war began to shift in favor of the Allies, marking a turning point in a conflict that had thus far been dominated by the Axis powers. The D-Day invasion, also known as Operation Overlord, was an unprecedented feat of military strategy and bravery. It was the largest amphibious invasion in history, involving over 150,000 Allied troops storming the beaches of Normandy in France. This monumental effort not only showcased the sheer power and coordination of the Allied forces, but also their unwavering resolve to liberate Europe from the clutches of Nazi Germany. Now that we've established the significance of D-Day, it's time to delve deeper into the events of that fateful day. Imagine it's the early hours of June 6, 1944, and something monumental is about to unfold. In the pre-dawn darkness, a colossal force was taking shape, a force unlike any that had ever been assembled in history. Men from different nations speaking different languages, all brought together with a single unified purpose. They were preparing for D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in history. The planning had been meticulous, yet weather threatened to derail the entire operation. Stormy conditions had already delayed the assault by a full day. Military leaders, including General Dwight D. Eisenhower, agonized over the decision to proceed. The lives of thousands of men hung in the balance. Yet in the face of uncertainty, the decision was made. The invasion would go ahead. It was a gamble of the highest stakes. The weather eased slightly, but conditions remained far from ideal. It was a risk, but it was a calculated one. Just after midnight, the first phase of the operation began. Airborne troops, the paratroopers, were dispatched. Their mission was to secure the flanks for the main invasion force and to cause disruption in the enemy ranks. They were the vanguard, the first wave of the assault. They dropped into the night, descending into a landscape that was both familiar and alien. They were met with resistance, but they pressed on. They fought not just against the enemy, but also against the elements. The darkness, the wind, the rain, all seemed to conspire against them. Yet they persevered, driven by duty and the knowledge that failure was not an option. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, the magnitude of the operation became clear. The horizon was filled with ships, a vast armada poised to strike. The airborne operations had set the stage. The pre-dawn hours were a time of tension, of anticipation, of fear, and of courage. As the sun began to rise, the main assault was about to commence. With the break of dawn, the Normandy beaches were about to witness an unprecedented event. As the first rays of the sun began to pierce the morning mist, the churning waters of the English Channel teemed with an armada of vessels, all headed for the same destination, the beaches of Normandy. This was the start of the morning assault, a pivotal moment in the D-Day invasion. The seaborne troops, huddled together in landing crafts, battled not only their nerves but also the rough seas that threatened to capsize their vessels. The air was thick with anticipation and fear as they approached the shore. The soldiers knew that the worst was yet to come, for the German defenses awaited them on the beaches. These defenses were no ordinary obstacles. The Germans had fortified the coast with concrete bunkers, barbed wire and landmines, creating a formidable barrier known as the Atlantic Wall. The troops had to breach this wall, under the constant hail of German gunfire and artillery. Despite the daunting challenges, the troops pressed on. The roar of the engines was drowned out by the deafening sounds of gunfire and explosions. The air was filled with the acrid smell of smoke and the sharp tang of fear. Yet, in the face of such adversity, the troops showed remarkable bravery. They disembarked from their landing crafts, wading through the waist-high water burdened by their heavy gear. Each step was a struggle against the tide, against the fear, and against the enemy fire. There were losses, yes, but there were victories too. Inch by inch, yard by yard, the troops advanced, overcoming one obstacle after another. They fought for every piece of the beach, for every inch of freedom. And as the morning turned into afternoon, the scene on the beaches began to change. The relentless assault was taking its toll on the German defenses. The Atlantic Wall, once thought to be impregnable, was beginning to crumble under the onslaught. By noon, the invasion was in full swing. By the afternoon of June 6th, the Allies had a foothold on the beaches of Normandy. This was no small feat. The morning had been fraught with danger and uncertainty, but now, there was a palpable shift in momentum. The Allies were making headway. Let's imagine the scene. The beaches, once pristine and untouched, were now marred by the harsh realities of war. But amid the chaos and destruction, there was progress. The Allies were securing the beaches one by one: Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juno, and Sword, names that would go down in history as symbols of courage and resilience. As the afternoon wore on, the Allies continued to push inland. The goal was to establish a secure beachhead, a launching pad for further operations. This was critical. Without a secure foothold, the entire operation could unravel. The securing of the beaches was not without its challenges. The German forces were formidable, and they were not going to give up their positions easily. But the Allies had the advantage of numbers, and they were determined to make every shot count. The push inland was equally challenging. The terrain was unfamiliar, and the German defenses were well entrenched. But the Allies were relentless. They advanced inch by inch, yard by yard, fighting for every bit of ground. By late afternoon, the situation was beginning to change. The Allies were gaining ground, and the German forces were beginning to retreat. The tide of the battle was turning, but the day was far from over. The Allies knew that they had to hold their positions to consolidate their gains. They dug in, setting up defensive perimeters, preparing for the inevitable counterattacks. As the shadows lengthened and the sun began to set, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The Allies had achieved their objective. They had secured the beaches, they had pushed inland, and they had established a firm beachhead. As the day drew to a close, the Allies had established a firm beachhead. This was a significant achievement, a crucial first step in the long, hard road to victory. But for now, the Allies could take a moment to reflect on their progress, to take stock of their achievements. For they knew that the battle was far from over, and that the road ahead was still long and fraught with danger. In the wake of D-Day, the face of World War II was forever changed. Indeed, the echoes of that pivotal day would resonate long after the guns fell silent. The aftermath of D-Day was a scene of profound contrasts. On one hand, there was the grim reality of the high casualty rates. The beaches of Normandy were painted with the cost of freedom, a sobering testament to the valor and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought there. In the days and weeks that followed, the death toll rose to staggering figures. Thousands of brave men from both sides of the conflict had fallen, each loss a ripple in the fabric of families and communities back home. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there was a glimmer of hope. For with D-Day came the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The successful invasion had provided the Allies with a crucial foothold in Western Europe. From there, they would launch a relentless campaign, pushing back against the forces of oppression that had held the continent in its iron grip. This victory was not just military, but symbolic as well. The liberation of France marked a significant turning point in the war. The French resistance, which had been fighting a shadow war against the German occupation, was now bolstered by the arrival of the Allied forces. Together they would sweep across France, liberating town after town, until at last, the City of Light itself, Paris, was free. The fall of the Nazi regime would follow less than a year later. The aftermath of D-Day had set in motion a series of events that would culminate in the collapse of one of history's most oppressive regimes. D-Day marked a turning point, not just in World War II, but in the course of human history. The soldiers who stormed the beaches of Normandy that day were not just fighting for their countries, they were fighting for the very principles of freedom and democracy. Their courage and sacrifice would be remembered, their legacy echoing through the ages. D-Day, an event of monumental significance, forever etched in the pages of history. As we've journeyed from the pre-dawn hours of suspense and preparation, through the morning assault's fierce battle, into the afternoon's hard-fought progress, and finally the aftermath, the sheer magnitude of D-Day becomes apparent. This day was the turning point of World War II. The audacious invasion of Normandy was a testament to the courage and resilience of the Allied forces. It marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers, setting the stage for the liberation of Europe from the clutches of tyranny. Moreover, D-Day serves as a reminder of the human capacity for bravery, unity, and sacrifice in the face of adversity. It stands as a beacon, illuminating the path towards peace and freedom. Remember, D-Day was not just a day, it was a pivotal moment that changed the course of history.